Hey folks, welcome to another Snapp Tech podcast. I'm here with Stefan from Veecle. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Veecle is a technology company that does software for safety devices, for example, cars, drones, machines, all written in modern Rust. And people can just check out the Veecle Studio and program all in the cloud, simulate everything in the cloud. You don't need actual hardware, and then later move on. So you can go from rapid prototyping to actual serious production without throwing away your code.
Fantastic. So we actually worked together a little bit in the past. So we were using, I think, SnappOS to demonstrate your software in some events, for example. So we know a little bit about each other. But recently you pivoted from the initial plan maybe to open source model with your operating system. Would you like to tell a little bit about the decision with that?
Yeah, sure. So the initial company idea was to license the operating system that we build that runs on especially ECUs, so electronic control units of vehicles, and car makers were using our software to build new, for example, assistance systems, connect all of the hundreds of thousands of sensors in a central code base, deploy the binary files to these ECUs, connected to, for example, infotainment systems so that they have kind of raw access to the vehicle and so on. But we saw that the adaptation of software-defined vehicles is so slow, to be honest. And the American startups like Tesla or Rivian, or the Chinese car makers like BYD, Xiaomi, etc., are much faster. They have software-defined bases to work on, and they give their customers an over-the-air software update every month, basically. That especially the European traditional car industry is too slow to catch up. So we wanted to create momentum and having all of the car makers be able to adopt such an SDV platform by making it open source. And at the same time, we saw that the complementary product we have, the studio, fits very well, because then you have your digital twins, your simulation, your cloud environment, your single code base, collaborative way of working as a very complementary product. And I think this is something that the European sovereignty needs, so that we can build on a joint platform and nobody needs to worry about what I always call foundational software.
Right. What do you see is the benefit of open source versus closed source for you?
The benefit is not only that you can see the code, but also that it's very easy to try out without involving a procurement department. That people can also contribute, which doesn't mean, some people are afraid if they hear that there are bugs or security vulnerabilities, right? It's still a very defined process. You need to create a pull request, there's peer reviews, there are automatic tests, CI/CD pipelines, all of that in the background. But it means that people are contributing and companies are contributing because they say, well, we used it, but we actually found that this and this could be either improved, or they have a very, let's call it, esoteric protocol they want to support. And then that is, I think, a very good working model.
You mentioned in your white paper that one thing that open source also adds is removes the vendor lock threat from big companies. You are quite small company, as are we, and we've faced it quite often that companies don't want to get vendor lock, especially to small companies, because you don't know a small company exists next year, let's be honest. So have you seen that being benefit as well?
Yes. So it works because they know even if we wouldn't exist, well, the source code is out there. They could fork it today if they want, or tomorrow. Because also maybe to add that, right, we're using an Apache 2 license, so it's out there for commercial use if they want. And at the same time, it's not just the lock-in from us that they might be afraid, and is now a bit more relieved, but it's also that the software itself prevents other vendor lock-in, because people can just write plugins, import other data formats, and we see this is also a big benefit that the customers like. Yeah.
What is your contribution model? You are still gatekeepers of the official branch, right?
Yes. Yeah, and we want to do that because that just is basically the quality promise that we give. It doesn't mean that people are contributing things that are not of quality, but it's always good to have a single gatekeeper and pull requests and reviews and all of that comes with a maintained project.
So you're not afraid somebody's going to fork it and start selling it to somebody else? Because that's kind of when we talk to companies that build closed source software, and you try to convince them that actually open model might be a quite good approach to you. the first answer is that we built this, we paid for it. Why would we give it away for free?
Well, there's a simple answer. The ratio is, let me just make up the numbers here. 20% of all of the users will clone it in China, resell it, and they make money. But 80% are there, and has a much bigger majority, quite obviously, because the adoption is so easy and it just spreads itself. And also bigger companies that maybe don't pay for it, they just spread the word and they use it, and so other companies just get aware because of that. And I think that's definitely the benefit. In the end, it counts how often it's installed, how fast it spreads.
So do you think that by being open source, the potential client base is so much bigger that you win the potential loss of somebody taking it for free and not actually giving you money at all? Right?
That's the math behind it. Yes, yeah, definitely. And the speed, right? Because if you go through procurement, if you license it, you have usually then to negotiate, it's either a bit more expensive when they want to have updates for lifetime, or you buy a specific version, but then you automatically run out of, you're basically working on an outdated version. It doesn't make too much sense. So I think the model nowadays for a lot of software is always have the latest version, it's open source, you pull it yourself.
Right. Or to add to that one, do you have any plans to go, because with an open source you can go things like universities can use it, and in very early phases, your software is quite highly specialized. It's not somebody who's going to hobbyist put their own car, hopefully, I guess.
We're getting there.
But at some point there might be a kind of, a lot of open source brings like a movement of hobbyists and people just tinkering and building stuff for themselves, right? Do you see any adoption there, or do you plan to go to schools or technical universities in Germany? Or something?
Yeah, that's happening already. So universities are using it. That's one point. Formula student, but also obviously the more like traditional commercial usage. But what we also see is that people who understand, this is just a way to develop embedded software much faster, because I clone a template. I define, I have this sensor, I have this output, I have 2-3 machines. This is where it usually gets complex, that need to communicate over Ethernet, CAN, DDS, some IP, and all of these protocols. And you're able to just use your mouse and change the protocol and click recompile. Then you understand, okay, that was never been that easy. And then it doesn't matter whether you build a car and it's maybe highly specific, or you're working on a drone, or you're building the next IoT project.
Yeah, you mentioned on your website much more than just cars. Our connection is cars in the past, and that's where you started from, right? But now you talk about IoT, you talk about agriculture, you talk about military applications and things like that. What is your plan to go beyond cars? Do you have thoughts, or do you just let it go?
No, that's already working. So especially in the connected field, so anything that is mobility, which is special purpose vehicles, commercial vehicles, and also defense vehicles. And the next neighbor is robotics and IoT, because they all basically work with the same principle. You have one of the typical NVIDIA, Qualcomm, ST, Infineon, NXP, Renesas chips. And the software is the same. It used to be C, C++. Now, especially with our framework written in Rust, a lot of people are actually trying it out and see, oh my God, it's faster in the sense that I need a smaller team and I get the first time right. There's a benefit. And so it doesn't really matter whether you're doing a medicine product or a vehicle. In the end, you want reliable code. That's what Rust gives you in a framework that is super deterministic.
But I'd imagine that robotics or drones would have hobbyist field much bigger than automotive.
Yes.
To be honest, yeah, that's pretty cool. So a couple of questions. I wanted to talk about, we talk a lot from the European digital sovereignty point of view. We need to have more software that is here. But it also, in my opinion, the right approach, the right response to America is not to replicate Silicon Valley. Yeah. Because
we cannot, right? I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't want to. We want to be better. We have to have certain ethics in our software and so on. Open source creates this kind of interesting play field that allows companies to compete with software instead of lock-ins. Because the American Silicon Valley model is to try to give you a lot of things for free until you're locked in and then try to pull all money from you. That's mostly a B2C approach. But in open source, that kind of eliminates that thing. And we see a lot of things. We talk about Nextcloud, we talk about a lot of things. They have foundation on open source. Yeah, I don't think open source allows interoperability of different type of, different modules from different manufacturers, and we can create a playground. What we talk to European Union and lawmakers is that we want to create a playground where we remove the unfair advantage of some of the American tactics. But we also want to create good software that competes with the merits of the software itself and not just a login. What is your take on where should we go as Europe? As a business owner here and as a software provider here, what should be the Europe's role in software in general?
My perspective is obviously what we're already building as a foundational software. Reinventing the wheel doesn't make too much sense, right? Let's just take the American example of the Microsoft suite and the Google suite and others. They are similar. Of course, they have different flavors and there are reasons to use one or the other and so on, or Nextcloud. But what we can do correctly in Europe now, because unfortunately we're lacking a lot of the software, is to work on a common foundation, and then everybody else just adds their differentiation. And that could be like we do with the Veecle operating system. But of course, this is true for a lot of other things where why would we not work on a common shared foundation, all contribute, and I think gain more than we lose by opening up the IP. And then on top, if we stay in the automotive example, BMW can make what makes the BMW still on top. But the fact that the turn signal needs to go on every 500 milliseconds, goes on out of, turns off every 500 milliseconds. I'm sorry, BMW, that's the same in the Dacia. Yeah? So why would you differentiate?
That's exactly it. So what I see a lot of in the last 10 years, European Union has been trying to fund unicorns, which I hate the term, trying to fund innovation, all of this. I think we should keep doing that. But the one thing is lacking in Europe is the foundation. Like you said, just the normal stuff. It doesn't have to recreate next generation robotics. It has to have to create this like foundation software that we can build on top of that one. And I wish European Union would just put a little bit of money on just helping everybody, especially projects like yours. Yeah. If the project exists there, you have funding, secured funding to build it for long term. You can plan for long term features. Yeah. Everybody wins in Europe.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. And you know what my wish is, what I think we should do? The Airbus success story. Why was it possible in the 70s to say, look, what we want is a European aircraft manufacturer that is competitive worldwide? Yes, I know nowadays it's a bureaucratic machine, but
worked for time.
It worked for a certain time. And I think the decision just needs to be, we need European independent chips. Yeah, they can be, for example, technically based on RISC-V. It doesn't need to be competing, but and foundational software and all of that, but give the money to this Airbus of chips or Airbus of software. I don't think that the existing companies have the machinery and the organizational, diagram to do that. Even if they had the money, that would be burned in a lot of friction.
That would be the bureaucracy goes there. All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Unless there's something else you want to add on.
It was very interesting. Thanks a lot.
Fantastic. Thanks for talking to me, and talk to you next time. Bye, folks.